Today, we're going to dig into how your backyard, or your patio, or heck, even your windowsill can be so much more than just a space for a few plants. We're talking about turning it into a living laboratory, your own personal apothecary, and a direct link to some fascinating history. We are crafting the perfect tea garden. And this quote, it just nails it. It perfectly captures what we're talking about today. A tea garden isn't just about plopping some herbs in the ground and hoping for the best. No way. It's about understanding the science of how they grow, the art of how you arrange them, and the incredible stories these plants have carried with them through history. All right, so let's start with that history. We're going to go on a little journey from the very first gardens designed for medicine all the way to the one you can build for yourself right at home. When you look at this timeline, what's really wild is how the whole purpose of the garden just completely transforms over the centuries. I mean, it starts back in 1673 with places like the Chelsea Physic Garden, which were literally outdoor classrooms for training pharmacists. Then, fast forward a century to North America, and the garden becomes a political statement. The Liberty Tea movement was all about colonists defiantly using native herbs like Monarda instead of taxed British tea. And then, the Victorians came along and turned it into this incredible art form. It's this amazing evolution from science to rebellion to pure beauty. Okay, with that awesome history as our backdrop, it's time to choose our herbal champions. For this explainer, we're going to focus on three absolute powerhouses that honestly form the core of any great tea garden. You've got the unstoppable mint, the gentle chamomile, and the historic monarda. First up is mint. And seriously, if your tea garden has a workhorse, this is it. It's famous for that powerful, cooling flavor that comes from its high menthol content, and as any gardener will tell you, for its incredibly vigorous and, let's be honest, pretty much unstoppable growth. But here's the thing, mint isn't just one flavor. It's a whole universe of different tastes. A lot of this incredible diversity actually comes from hybridization. You see, peppermint isn't some ancient species. It's a natural hybrid of watermint and spearmint. And that's why you can find everything from that sharp, high menthol peppermint to the sweet warmth of spearmint, and even crazy varieties that taste like chocolate or citrus or apple. It's amazing. So, how do you manage this incredible energy? Well, mint's secret weapon is its underground runners. They're called rhizomes. It's an evolutionary trick that lets it take over an area like crazy, choking out anything else in its path. The solution is simple, and honestly, it's non-negotiable. Always, always plant mint in its own container. That's how you contain its ambition. And here's a little pro tip for you. Since it spreads sideways, a wide pot is way better than a deep one. All right, our next champion is kind of the gentle soul of the garden, chamomile. For literally centuries, it's been the go-to herb for teas that are meant to calm, to soothe, and just help you relax. But here is a super critical distinction you have to know. There are two main types of chamomile, and they have totally different jobs in the garden. German chamomile, that's the one you want for tea. It's an upright annual, and it gives you tons and tons of flowers for harvesting. Roman chamomile, on the other hand, is a low-growing perennial. It's fantastic as a fragrant ground cover. People make these incredible scented lawns with it, but it's not going to give you a great harvest for tea. So just make sure you pick the right one for what you want to do. And that brings us to our third champion, monarda, which you might know as bee balm. This one brings us right back to that Liberty Tea story. This North American native has a completely unique flavor. It's kind of like citrus meets spice. It gives it this wonderfully complex, almost savory note that made it such a fantastic substitute for British tea. Now, monarda has one major weakness: powdery mildew. It can be a real pain, but thankfully, science has given us a cheat sheet. These are the results from a 3-year trial at the Mount Cuba Center, where they tested dozens of different varieties. And the data is crystal clear. Cultivars like Claire Grace show exceptional resistance, and Jacob Klein is the toughest of its type. Choosing one of these means way less disease and a much, much better harvest for your tea. Okay, so we have our champions picked out, but a successful garden isn't about luck, and it's not just about hard work. It's about smart, scientific design. And the core concept here is called hydrozoning. I know, it sounds super technical, right? But it's actually incredibly simple and effective. All it means is that you group plants together based on what they need. Thirsty plants go together, and the plants that like it dry go together. I'm telling you, this is the secret to an efficient, low-maintenance, and really healthy garden. So what does this actually look like? Well, you'd create a moisture-loving zone. You'd put your mint container and that scarlet bee balm, Monarda didyma, in a spot that stays pretty damp. Then you'd create a separate well-drained zone, maybe in a raised bed or rockier part of your yard, for your Roman chamomile and the wild bergamot, Monarda fistulosa. They absolutely hate having wet roots, and this simple grouping is what prevents root rot. Now that our garden is thriving, we get to the most rewarding part of all, the harvest. And believe me, how and when you harvest is what truly determines the potency and the flavor of your final tea. Timing is absolutely everything. The perfect time to harvest is in the morning, right after the dew has dried up but before the hot sun has a chance to zap the plant's precious essential oils. For leafy herbs like mint, you want to harvest just before it flowers. That is when the oil concentration is at its absolute peak. For flowers like chamomile, you want to pick them at the fullness stage, when they're fully open but haven't started to fade. That's when you get the highest concentration of those key anti-inflammatory compounds. So once you've harvested, you have to dry them properly. And the main takeaway here is that direct heat and sun are your enemies. They can literally cook the delicate oils and just destroy the flavor. For the best quality, your top choices are either shade drying in a dark, well-ventilated space or using a food dehydrator on its absolute lowest setting. Both of these methods preserve that vibrant color and aroma that you worked so hard to grow. And now we finally get to the absolute best part, turning our beautiful harvest into a perfect cup of tea. This is where the science of growing meets the art of alchemy. You know, professional blenders often use this simple but totally brilliant structure. About 60% of your blend is the base. That's a pleasant foundational flavor like chamomile or peppermint. 30% is supportive, herbs that complement the base, like our spicy monarda. And then the final 10% is the accent. That's a powerful top note like lavender that just adds a pop of excitement. If you follow this 60-30-10 rule, you'll be creating balanced, delicious blends every single time. And for brewing, the standard ratio is about 1 teaspoon of dried herbs for every 8 ounces of water. But here is the most important tip I'm going to give you. Always, always steep your herbal tea with a lid on the cup. You know those fragrant clouds of steam? That's literally your essential oils. All the flavor and the medicine is seeping into the air. A simple saucer on top will trap them and put them right back into your tea where they belong. Before we finish up, we really need to talk about safety. It's so easy to forget, but these beautiful, fragrant plants are also really potent. Their active compounds can be very powerful, which means we have to be mindful and respectful of how we use them. It's vital to be aware of potential interactions. Chamomile, for example, can enhance the effects of things like blood thinners and sedatives. Monarda is not recommended for those with hypothyroidism, and it should be avoided during pregnancy. The takeaway here is simple. Herbs are medicine. They have real effects on the body. If you are taking any medication, if you're pregnant, or if you have an existing health condition, please just check with your healthcare professional before using them regularly. So there you have it. We've journeyed from the apothecaries of 17th century London to the science of mildew resistance, all the way to the art of the perfect blend. You now have the blueprint to create a garden that's not just beautiful, but it's productive, it's historical, and it's deeply personal. So the only question left is, what story will your garden tell?